Suguli, everyone. My name is Jennifer Dockstader. I'm the Executive Director of the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. So a lot has changed during this pandemic, and the latest one is that the province has come down and our funders have told us a lot of things around vaccination, but we've been involved in vaccinating community for a long time now. This new one, though, is a video to answer questions community has because we really do believe that it's important to get vaccinated. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. But before I do that, I actually want to talk about what we're doing to make sure that when you come to the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center, you are actually safe. I can share with you that 94% of every staff person at the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center is vaccinated. They're double vaccinated, and we're good to go in that regard. For those that are not vaccinated, there's a few different reasons why they may not be vaccinated at this point. It is so small, but they are tested 3 times a week so that you can be assured that you will not contract COVID when you come to the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center to the very best of our abilities. We're committed to having a healthy, safe, prosperous community, no matter what we do here at the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about why I think it's important to be vaccinated. So from the beginning of the pandemic, I actually saw the reports that were coming out of, at the time, the Asian community in actually China, talking about the possibility that there was a virus that could become a pandemic. That was in the beginning of December of 2019 that I saw that. And I started to pray. I prayed that it wouldn't actually come to North America. My prayers were not answered. By January of 2020, it was already in British Columbia, and from there it spread like wildfire. That year, we had our powwow, and we managed to get through the powwow. There weren't high numbers yet in Ontario at that time, but clearly this was a pandemic. Clearly it was coming, that we were going to get to a point where we were going to have to close our doors and take everything remote. I'm proud to say that the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center remained open the entire time. We kept everybody employed. We just kept doing our best for community. And I'm so proud of what we did. We managed to get through our youth and elder gathering. And I knew that that would be the last public event we would have for a while, in-person event of a large scale. We got through. And then that Monday, I knew I was going to have to send every employee to work from home. And my amazing management team didn't want me to bear full responsibility alone. So they suggested that we as the management team of the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center stay on site every day to manage the phones, to help the staff who were at home. We started a food pantry that we've operated every day since, and we helped out wherever we could. We got community technology when they needed it. We kept programming going. We talked to government about how you were doing in community. We called you, each and every one of you. We called you, not just once, twice, and 3 times a week to make sure that your spirits were kept high. We took all of our programming online just to keep you happy and healthy and safe as much as possible. Yes, we were scared. We were waiting and praying for a vaccine that would help us get out of this because we so value all of you. We at the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center, and me in particular, there are no people that I love more than our people. Our people are the most important people to me in the whole world. And you know this. You know this because we show this all the time as an organization, and you see that from me. And that remains true to this day. My focus was always to keep our knowledge keepers and our fluent speakers, our elders, our children, our men, our women, all as healthy as possible through this pandemic. I don't want to lose a single one of you. You mean that much to me. You are my community. You are my people. So So when the vaccine came, I celebrated and I waited, and I knew that everybody was scared. But I was reading the science on this. I can promise you, I follow Health Canada, I follow Ontario Public Health, and I follow the CDC, as well as I subscribe to some journals that I receive because of my being an alumnus of Temple University. I also celebrated when we were valued so much. For the first time in history that I know of, we were valued so much that we were a priority. We were first priority to receive this vaccine. And my first thought was our title holders, our knowledge keepers, our elders, our fluent language speakers. I imagined a world where they might actually get through this and be alive and be available to all of us, because we all love our elders. We love our children, we love our elders, and we love our knowledge keepers, and we love our fluent speakers. So that's why we engaged in the very first vaccine clinic, mass vaccination clinic in the region of Niagara. And man, all of you came. We vaccinated approximately 1,100 people over 2 days here at the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. And we kept going. We kept up our relationship with public health, and we kept doing vaccination clinics at the McBain Center. To this day, the town of Fort Erie, when they need tables, comes to us to borrow our tables for the vaccine clinics that are happening all over town, because it's so important to us that you have access to the very best of the vaccine that's available. I still believe that we need to all be vaccinated, and I understand you're afraid. So that's the final piece. I contacted our good friends at Public Health. I talked to Dr. Hirji and I talked to Kathy Bell. And both of them agreed, along with somebody that you will be familiar with if you're from the town of Fort Erie, Patricia Dockstader, then Hill, and now MacLaren. She's a retired RN from our community. She has been a community nurse. She only retired a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic. But I'm grateful every day of my life that we have had the expertise and the wise counsel of my aunt.
Do they know down the road if we're all going to be okay after we get vaccinated?
COVID-19 vaccines have been rigorously checked by Health Canada and endorsed by international health agencies worldwide. Many people have received the vaccines in the testing situation, and they've been monitored very closely, not only for safety, but for the effectiveness of the vaccine. And the people that are being vaccinated now are being monitored also.
Is the government putting a chip in the vaccine to track where we are?
No, the government is not putting chips in the vaccine. I have seen the vaccine drawn up in our pharmacy. There are no chips in the vaccine, and they do not track you through whatever system for those who have received the vaccine.
I've heard children who get vaccinated end up with heart conditions. Is this true?
Yeah, so there's no sorts of long-term heart conditions that we've detected that the vaccine causes. We are seeing that in some children, there's this condition called myocarditis, which is a short-term inflammation of the heart. It's actually something that we get after colds, after those kinds of illnesses quite often. If you've ever had a cold and you felt your heart was beating a bit funny sometimes, that's actually probably some mild case of myocarditis. And we do see that actually after COVID-19 infection, and we see it much more rarely after the vaccine. Now, what we don't know is the vaccine causing that? Or is it that young people, of course, are sometimes getting infections at the same time as they maybe got the vaccine, and they're maybe getting that myocarditis? So it's something we're watching closely. Across Canada, about 53 million doses of vaccine have been given. Only about 600 times have we detected myocarditis. So it's very, very rare. And it's the kind of condition that people actually just get naturally better from, usually don't require any kind of medication.
I'm a healthy person with a good immune system. I take natural supplements and don't think I'll get sick. Why should I get vaccinated? My own immune system will protect me.
COVID-19 is a lot of life-threatening complications. And there's no way to tell how it's going to affect you personally. So vaccinations, a high percentage of vaccinations by the general population in itself helps protect other people, like the people who are immunocompromised. And they can be through illness, through cancer treatments, or through organ transplants, as well as it helps because we have the children who are below the age of qualifying for vaccination need to be protected also.
Is there anything in the vaccine that can harm a diabetic?
No, and actually the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and Diabetes Canada do encourage all type 1 and type 2 diabetics to get vaccinated. As I said earlier, the vaccine is highly effective, and if you are a diabetic, you are immunocompromised, which means you could be at risk for more severe disease, hospitalization, and even death. So we want to ensure that everyone is vaccinated who is eligible and who can get vaccinated. And I just also want to note that there were many diabetics who were part of the clinical trials for the vaccine, and there were no adverse effects for those individuals who participated.
How do we know that a vaccine that was rushed through FDA approval is going to be safe for everyone?
Yeah, so I'm going to maybe just touch on that last part of the question. The FDA is, of course, the US agency. They did give an emergency approval to the vaccine. In Canada, that was very different. Health Canada gave full approval to the vaccines right off the bat. There wasn't some sort of emergency or interim approval. So I think that's really key, that the vaccine was fully approved here in Canada. Before it got approved, it was tested on hundreds of thousands of people around the world to make sure it was safe and that it was working. And of course, Health Canada doesn't want a vaccine used if it's not going to work and do good benefits, but also if it's too dangerous or it has side effects that are really worrisome, we also don't want to be using it for that reason. So the vaccine was shown to be safe and it was shown to be effective in those hundreds of thousands of people in whom it was tested around the world. And that's the main reason why we know it's safe. The second reason is that 53 million people in Canada have now got the vaccine. Over 1 billion people around the world have gotten the vaccine. And so say some sort of side effect that only occurs 1 in a million. Maybe in a study of 100,000 people, you might not see it because there's not enough people. But now with 1 billion or plus people vaccinated, we are picking up any kinds of side effects of that nature, and we're not really seeing anything. So we have a really good track record of billions of people getting the vaccine and not really seeing side effects. And the flip side of that is that we have the 1 billion people getting vaccines, and we're seeing they're much, much less likely to get COVID-19, much less likely to be hospitalized, and almost never dying of COVID-19.
I think a lot of people are wary of the vaccine because it's being implemented so strongly by our governments. Our governments have had many instances throughout history where it's proven itself to be untrustworthy. How do people trust what's being told to them about the vaccine?
Okay, first of all, the information that we get, the information as far as how it's transmitted, what it is, and what we can do to try to protect ourselves comes from the medical community. It comes from all medical professionals all over the world who have gotten together and made a general area of idea of how it should be treated. Where the government comes in is the government tries to enforce this so that people will comply with what the medical field is saying. So really, it's not the government that we're learning to trust. It is the medical community, and they are the ones that we need to realize they're working for the best for the world in general at this point.
I've had COVID, and it wasn't that bad. I was sick for about a month, and so I built up antibodies. Do I really need the vaccine?
The fourth wave that we're seeing right now is truly the wave of the unvaccinated. We are seeing more and more infections in Niagara and also across the province and across Canada. When you do contract COVID-19, you do develop some natural immunity. You develop antibodies, and they last in you for about 90 days is what the research is showing. We also know that those antibodies wane over time, and we're able to see that through the research that we are doing. What we do know is the vaccine is highly effective, and we know that even with the multiple variants that have come about, the vaccine remains and continues to be as effective. There is a lot of transmission with regards to COVID-19, and the vaccine has continued to protect us, and it is the best method of protection in order to protect yourself and your family.
Why were Indigenous people first? We've been guinea pigs in the past. What's changed?
Nothing really changed. The thing is, Indigenous communities contain a large amount of intergenerational families who reside together. So with COVID-19, the most vulnerable people are seniors and children. So it would follow logically that these are the people who would be targeted for the vaccination. Also, we need to bear in mind that it is our elders who are responsible as far as carrying the knowledge of our culture and our language so that we can carry on and prosper as a people.
I hear rumors that we become magnetized after we get the vaccine. Why is this, and is it safe?
Okay, so I have brought magnets with me, and I'm going to do a demo. They've been holding down my paper, but you can see they are magnets. They're very magnetized, lots of energy there. I am fully vaccinated. I know my loved ones are fully vaccinated, and with these magnets, you can see they will just fall right off me. There is no magnetism coming from my body as a result of the vaccine.
Did the government target Indigenous communities for the initial rollout to further decrease our population?
Although I've heard this a lot, we have to realize that it's not the government that is rolling out these ideas. This is the medical community. These are the professionals, these are the organizations that have been set up for this, and they're the ones that are promoting how we protect ourselves, the vaccination, and so we need to keep following that, not the government.
Aside from hearsay, what side effects are actually known by health officials about the vaccine?
So I'm going to focus on the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine because really those are the main ones we're using in Canada, and definitely those are the ones that we use when doing clinics for the Indigenous community. The big side effect that we see with that is people get some mild flu-like symptoms. You know, you get pain at your place where you got the injection, you get some muscle soreness, you feel a little bit of feverish. That's the most common side effect that people get. Very rarely, some people are getting allergic reactions to the vaccine. Usually we can figure out who's going to have an allergic reaction because we know what allergies they have, but sometimes, unfortunately, it happens. If you're getting vaccinated, if you have to wait 15 minutes after your vaccine, that's because we want to make sure you don't have an allergic reaction. If you do, we can treat it. And then the one other issue that we are seeing is myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart, occurs very rarely, can actually occur with COVID-19 infection, and actually occurs much more likely with COVID-19 infection. Unfortunately, that's a pretty mild side effect. It's something that causes some discomfort, but you get better without really any medications most of the time. So those are the main side effects that we've seen with these vaccines.
I've had Bell's palsy. Is there anything in the vaccine that affects that?
That's actually a great question. Let me just preface this with Health Canada has a really rigorous system for reporting any vaccine adverse effects. And there's national surveillance Canada-wide. So any reaction to the vaccine is tracked through this surveillance system. What we do know about Bell's palsy is there have been about 421 cases to date. of Bell palsy across Canada. There have also been over 54 million vaccines administered across Canada. So if you look at the risk of contracting COVID-19, the risk of severe disease, the risk of being hospitalized or death, versus the benefit of receiving the vaccine, we certainly want to ensure people are vaccinated. Just a little bit about Bell's palsy. Even though it is extremely rare, it also usually within a couple weeks you do recover from Bell's palsy as well too. What it is a weakened facial muscles that may cause like one-sided drooping of the face, but other than that you usually do fully recover from Bell's palsy.
My body, my choice.
Again, like I say, I can understand that. But I also would say to someone who feels this way is to do the research. The research is online. There are credible sources. You can go to the World Health Organization. You can go to Health Canada. There are places that you can go. And one thing that I have noticed is the fact that anybody with a name doctor in front of their name is out there talking. But they're not all medical doctors. Some of these are PhD doctors who have an opinion, which is fine, but it needs to be noted that we need advice from medical people, medical doctors, nurses, people that have the credentials and know what they're talking about. And so there are a lot of credible things online. We just have to search them out and then make an informed decision.
If I'm wearing a mask and my coworker is wearing a mask and that's supposed to protect us, why do we need to be vaccinated?
There are multiple layers of protection, and vaccination, I would say, is the most important and critical layer of protection that one can do to prevent or stop this pandemic from continuing. We certainly encourage masking. We encourage 6 feet apart, washing your hands at all times, staying home if you are ill. But vaccination is the most important critical layer in order to end this pandemic once and for all.
I've heard from the community that the Pfizer vaccine expires in 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, so I wouldn't use the word expires. The vaccine, as best we know, continues to work over a year later. What we do know is that for some people, maybe it's becoming less effective over that period of time. So it's not giving them as good protection. Generally, what that seems to mean, though, is that you're more likely to get a cold, a kind of mild illness like that. It still seems like it's very, very effective at preventing you from being in the hospital or preventing you from having a serious outcome such as dying from COVID-19. Down the road, as we have a few more years of experience and maybe we see it is weakening over time, maybe we'll need to have booster doses similar to how we get a flu shot very frequently. But right now we don't know that. Right now, though, the 2 doses is the key thing to make sure you have protection.
If you're pregnant, is it unsafe to get the vaccine?
Okay, there is evidence that shows that the mRNA vaccines are safe for both pregnant women and nursing mothers. The National Advisory Committee of Immunization recommends that the women receive the complete series of the mRNA vaccine. Summaries of statements that have been put out by various professional organizations conclude that the benefits to getting the vaccine far outweigh the possibility of what could happen if the person got COVID-19. So this has been shown that if a pregnant woman does contract COVID-19, there's a higher risk of morbidity or mortality with her. So each person should consult their doctor, their midwife, the professional that they have faith in, and talk over their particular situation to figure out exactly what's right for them.
If you're a woman, can it alter your menstrual cycle?
Okay, some women have been reporting changes in their menstrual cycle, both after having had the vaccination and also after having COVID-19. The things that it can actually change can be the duration of the menstrual cycle, the flow of the menstrual cycle, or the pain level.
If you're unvaccinated, can your menstrual cycle be altered just by being around someone who is vaccinated?
The mRNA vaccine is eliminated from the body in 3 days. The rest of it goes on to help the body to learn how to produce antibodies against the virus. So therefore, if you are around a person who has been vaccinated, there is no effect on you as a friend.
Have there been any cases of increased inflammation in people who've received the vaccine?
As I mentioned earlier, Health Canada does have a very robust vaccine surveillance system. So any adverse effects, any reactions to the vaccine, it is tracked. So we have seen 2 cases of multi-system inflammatory response post-vaccination. This can result, though, occur in anyone, and it also occurs when you, it can occur when you contract COVID-19. Again, if you weigh the risks and the benefits, certainly it's far more critical that you get vaccinated, but I also would encourage you to speak to your healthcare professional. Even with Bell's palsy, I would always encourage you to speak to your healthcare provider if you have any questions, medical questions pertaining to COVID-19 and the vaccine.
Previous incidents such as SARS and H1N1 were dealt with quickly and efficiently. How is COVID-19 different?
I was around for SARS and I was around for H1N1, and this pandemic is completely different from either of those pandemics or epidemics that we saw in 2006 and 2009 and 2010. What we do know is each virus is unique. H1N1, SARS and COVID-19, they're all respiratory viruses. But with COVID, we are seeing increased transmittability and also increased length of infectiousness. So what that means is somebody with H1N1 or influenza, may be infectious or contagious for, say, 3 to 5 days. What we do know with coronavirus or COVID-19 through research is the infectivity period is actually extremely long. And that's why we tell people to isolate for 10 days while they are positive. We also know that people can be asymptomatic and still transmit the virus. So that's why we tell people it's really important to isolate early, get tested on day 5, and remain in isolation because it is so highly infectious. We also know that people can be infectious up to 20 days as well too, which is extremely concerning. So people with severe disease, people who are hospitalized, their infectiousness can continue for longer periods of time. We're also seeing with this virus a lot of mutations, and so far we've seen 4 pretty serious variants that have come about from this pandemic. And we monitor those mutations and identify those variants of concern. And it's usually those variants that are have higher transmissibility or have increased disease. So Public Health Agency of Canada, Public Health, World Health Organization, Center for Disease Control, we are all monitoring this pandemic very closely.
Talk of my family is that Pfizer is going to be requiring us to have another booster shot. How often are we going to need to do this and why?
Yeah, so I don't think we know the answer to this yet. There are some countries where they're seeing that the vaccine is becoming less strong. It's kind of weakening over time, mostly in older age groups. And that's largely in Israel, maybe a little in the US. We haven't seen that in Canada. We haven't seen that in places like the United Kingdom. So we're still trying to figure out what is actually the situation here. I think right now our goal doesn't need to be on booster shots. It's to make sure the people who don't have protection yet from COVID-19, we help support them to make sure they're protected because we want to make sure they don't get sick and they have bad outcomes.
Answering your questions is easy to do. because I do believe in this, and I know you're afraid, and I know you've never experienced this. I want to assure you I am doing my utmost to keep you safe, to make wise decisions, and be the place that you can trust, not just now, but in the future. There will be a time after the pandemic. Please, get vaccinated.